So now we're gonna continue from where we stopped, and okay, let me get to open the Android Studio. Previously we covered a lot of things, and we covered the Express setup. We had to set up the Express, we initialized the app, we created some variables and we made them null. So we now initialize the variables, and also you can see we initialize the port on the REST API app. Then we called function. So you can see the function here in native var. We actually called the function, and then when the function was triggered, after it runs, we now listen to the port. So now we want to continue from here. If you haven't watched the other video, please go back and watch the part 1 of the video. All right, so now we want to continue from where we stopped, and that is how we're going to set up the MongoDB. We're going to set up the database. So if you go to the package.json, you're going to see that we have some dependencies here, and we have the Express, we have the Nodemon. But particularly, we need a dependency that will help us communicate with the MongoDB database. So that dependency here is going to be called the Mongoose. So I'm going to show you how we work with the Mongoose dependency, you understand? So going to the browser, I'm typing Mongoose, you're going to see, so this is it, the Mongoose Npm. So the Mongoose Npm is going to help you communicate with the MongoDB database. So if you go to the documentation here, we see that the Mongoose is a MongoDB object modeling tool designed to work in an asynchronous environment. Mongoose support both promises and callbacks here. So you see the Mongoose actually helps you to connect your app to the MongoDB database. So it's just an object modeling tool. So it just works with the MongoDB database here. So let me go back, I think. So with the Mongoose, you can actually send information to your MongoDB. So you have to install the dependency, you see. So now, how do we install this dependency? You want to see that we go here, we're going to say npm, we're going to install the Mongoose. All you have to do is copy. You're going to copy this, and then we're going to go to the VS Code, and we're going to make use of it there. So I'm going to copy it. Okay, so I've copied it, and now I'm going to go to the VS Code, and in my VS Code, I'm going to go to the terminal here. So the terminal, you're going to see the terminal is up. So going up, I'm going to say new terminal here. So, okay. So now we have the terminal running. Now I'm going to say npm I, which actually means install. We're going to install, yeah, I was right, npm I install Mongoose. So this will install the Mongoose dependency. We're going to use it. We're going to connect to the MongoDB using this dependency here. So it is installing. It's going to take some minutes, like 1 to 2 minutes or so. So let's wait. So the Mongoose is installing. So remember, we're trying to set up the database now, so that when we make the REST API, we're gonna communicate from the mobile app to the REST API, and the REST API will communicate with the MongoDB. So we're installing this dependency Mongoose, and you can see now it is installed. So if you go to the dependency section here, you're gonna see that we have Mongoose. Alongside, we have the Nodemon and we have the Express. So it's installed, and now you can see it here. We have the Mongoose. That is it. So now we're going to make use of this dependency. We're going to make use of it, and we're going to make use of it to actually send data now from the Node.js to the MongoDB. So first of all, to do that, we have to create a connection. So you have to create a connection from here, index.js. We're going back to the index.js file. We're going to create a connection from here. So first of all, we have to import. So we're going to import the dependency, calling it the Mongoose. We import it, and this is how you import dependencies in Node.js. You just have to use the require. Then we pass in the name of the dependency here, Mongoose. So now we have imported the Mongoose. Now we're going to make use of these. So now to connect to the database, remember we have a function there. Now we're going to go down and we're going to create another function. We're going to call this function connect. Let's call it connect MongoDB. The name is too long. That's a long name. So we're going to change it to something much more simpler here. So we're going to call it connect DB. All right, so we're creating a function. The name is connect DB. Is going to be asynchronous. So the asynchronous function now will help us connect to the MongoDB. I'm going to show you how we're doing that. How we're going to connect to the MongoDB now. So to connect to the MongoDB, we're going to make use of the Mongoose. So the Mongoose, remember, we imported it. So this function connects DB, or you say connects the MongoDB. So we're going to connect the MongoDB here. So we're going to make use of the Mongoose we imported. So in here, we're going to try. First of all, we need to wrap it in a try catch. In case there is an error, it's going to catch the error and it's going to print it out in the console. So we're going to catch the error here. And inside the try, we're going to connect. We're going to try to connect to the MongoDB. So we're going to try to connect. If there's an error, we're going to catch the error. And when we catch the error, we show it to the user or we show it on the console. So we're going to say console.log. We're going to log the error. So you see that we're going to log the error here saying that there's an error connecting to the MongoDB. We're going to say error connecting DB or error connecting MongoDB. Okay, so if there's an error while we're trying to connect, it's going to show it down there. But now we're going to connect to the MongoDB. How do we connect? So to connect to the MongoDB, we have to make use of the Mongoose that we imported. So the Mongoose here, we're going to write down here saying the mongoose.connect. Mongoose.connect. So first of all, to connect, we have to pass in a URL. So this URL is going to be the connection string. So this connection string is going to help us connect. So how do we get this connection string? Initially, we do not have it, but I'm going to go and set it up and you're going to see how to create your own MongoDB connection string, which you're going to learn here. So, but before that, we're going to create a variable here. This variable is going to hold the connection string. I'm going to call this variable here the Mongo URL. Mongo URL. So now the Mongo URL is going to hold the connection string. So later on in this video, in the next minute, we're going to see how to create this connection string. So well, initially it's going to be null. So now it's null here. So now it's null. So if you check in here, we have to initialize. Because it's null now, we have to initialize it and give it a value inside this function init var. But to connect, first of all, we're going to connect, we have to pass in the Mongo URL. So in a minute, we're going to get this URL. You're going to say, I'll do that, and you see it. So now it's null. Then we say MongoDB connect. So now let's go create our own URL for the MongoDB. So to create it, first of all, we have to go to Mongo. We're going to type in the Google search here. We're going to type MongoDB. So we're going to make use of MongoDB Atlas here. So this Atlas is like a database. Inside here, you can actually send documents. But you can see here the MongoDB Atlas. So it's what we're going to use here. MongoDB Atlas. So what is this Atlas about here? First of all, you can see the MongoDB is a document database. It stores the data in JSON, so it's easy to understand. So you can see what the MongoDB is here. But we're going to make use of the MongoDB Atlas here. And the MongoDB Atlas is the global cloud database service for modern applications. So it's actually a good and a cool place to store your data, you see. So we're going to use the MongoDB Atlas to store the data. We're going to use the user data. The user will log in and we're going to store the data there. So now you click on it, and when you click on it, you come to this site. So in this site, most of you, if you don't have an account here, you have to create a free account, you see. So I'm going to say, I'm going to try a free account, but I already have my account currently here. So, but I'm still going to try in case most of you do not have it. I'll create an account from scratch, so that you see how it's done. So yeah, we're gonna create a free account. You can see it here. So there's a form you're telling your company how are you using MongoDB and a lot of things. So if you don't have an account, you're gonna create one right now. We're gonna say get started free, but I have one, so I'm gonna say sign in. So when you click on sign in, that is if you already have an account, you can decide to log in with just the email, right? With my Google email. So I am gonna log in here with my Google by clicking on login with Google because I already have an account. So I can say login with my Google account here. So by clicking on it, it's going to take you inside the clusters. You call it clusters. It's going to take you inside the database where you're going to see the clusters. I'm going to tell you about clusters in a minute here too. So I'm just giving you a simple way of creating an account here, you see. So I already have mine, and already have a cluster I'm using here, but I want to create a new cluster, which is actually easy, for this project, but there is no need for that. I think I should log out and create a new account for those that are new and they don't know how to use it. I'm going to show them how you can create a new account here. So I'm going to go to sign up by clicking on sign up. So to create an account, first of all, you have to put your email address, your first name, and you have to fill up this form. So that is the first thing to do. You have to fill up the form. So I'm going to put my email and fill it up. So make sure you do same. Put your email, put your full name. You're going to put your last name. You're going to put your password here. So it's going to say welcome. You see the welcome screen. So when you're done, it's going to show your welcome screen. So now you can now choose any of the plans you want. But me, I'm going to use a free plan. I'm not going to use a paid plan here. So it's going to show you this. It's going to say, let's get your account set up. So you can proceed to go with this. But now I'm going to save. Let me just save my details here. So now I'm going to set up my account here. I'm going to change my project name to RestApi Course. So my project name is going to change to RestApi Course. And then down here we can continue here. So now after that we have to choose a path. I'm not going to use the paid one. I'm going to use the free shared clusters here. So I'm going to say create a cluster. Then when you click on create a cluster, you're going to see this. I'm just going to say cluster name. You can actually decide to call your cluster anything you want to call it. But I'm going to call mine RestApi Course cluster. I'm going to see RestApi Course. Okay. So I'm going to RestApi cluster here. And then I'm going to say create cluster. Okay. So now you see your cluster here is being created. So this is going to take a while. It could take up to like 1 to 3 minutes, but you're going to wait. So we're going to wait, and then when it's done, we can now continue. So Okay, so the clusters have been created now. So this is the next screen you see here. So now we have the REST API cluster. So now this is where we're going to generate the MongoDB URL we're going to use in the VS Code. So we have to click the connect, and here we have to choose an IP address, but I'm going to say allow access from anywhere. So we're going to say add IP address, and then we proceed. So the next thing to do is to create a database user. So make sure you have your username and your email and your password here. And make sure you save it because we're going to use it later on in the app. So we're going to say my name, I'm going to use Joseph, and then I'm going to give it a password. Please make sure you create a name and make sure you remember, because we're going to use it later on when we are connecting to the MongoDB. We're going to use this database username. We're going to use the password. So make sure you recall it here. So I've written down my username. I've written down my password. You see? So create your database user, because we're going to use that. So we're going to say create database user. Okay, my password is weak. I'm going to create a stronger password. So now we're creating a database user. We have the name, we have the password. Make sure you use yours. Please use your username, use your password. Just use something about you. So now I'm going to say create database user. Okay, so that's been said and done. The next thing to do is to choose a connection method here. We're actually going to connect your application. So click from here. Now this is the string. We're going to copy this long piece of string here. I'm going to say, this is add your connection string to your application node. So we're going to copy this string, and then when you copy it, we're going to use it in our VS Code. So this is all what we need to get we need to get that. We need to use it to connect the Mongoose to the database. So now this MongoDB URL is going to be equal to that long string we copied. So we're going to paste it here. And you see that that's the long URL here. So now we have to put the password. So remember your password we use for the database user. You have to put it here. This was my password. Please do not use my user. Use your own user. Okay, go back. Remember that. Okay, it's out. I think I can go back and show you. Let me go back. Remember that we created a database user, the user that we created here. We gave that user a name, we gave that user a password. So that is what we're going to use inside this string. We're going to make use of the name, we're going to make use of the password. So that is my name here, and then this is my password. So use yours. So we're going to get rid, that is it. I'm going to get rid of this. We don't need those braces here. We don't need that. So the next thing to do is to create the database table here. So this is where you give your table a name. We're going to say the table name is going to be RestApi table. So that is it. So make sure you have this in your VS Code. Please, hope you're following me. The RestApi table. So that's the table we're going to use. This is my password here. And then this is my database username. So everything is right. We connect. We are on the right path here now. So we can proceed. Now I'm going to save it. Make sure you save your work. We're going to save all. Okay. Okay. So then after we have the URL there, we are going to pass an object. So this object we're passing inside this function here is going to be a set of parameters that will tell the connection, how it's going to be done. You understand? So I'm going to tell you some parameters we're going to pass. First of all, let me just make this thing arranged here. So we're going to pass in some parameters here. So one of them is what we call the use new URL parser. So you would ask, what is this doing? You want to know what it's doing. But from the documentation though, it's required that we set it to true. So again, what is this? You mean, what is this? What does it do? So it flags to allow users to fall back to the old parser if they find a bug in the new parser. So automatically what it does is just, you can fall back to the old version if there is a new version. Just set it to true, you know, unless, so all we just have to do is to set this to true, so that if there is a bug in the new version, it will automatically take you back to the old version, you see. So that is all this does. So we're going to set the use new URL parser. We're going to set it to true. So that is why it is true here. So there is another property here that we're supposed to add. I'm going to call it the use find and modify. So we're going to set this to false. Now you'll be asking me, what does this do? You want to know what it does. So what it does is that if you come to the documentation of the Mongoose, this is the Mongoose documentation, you're going to see the use find and modify. So they say set to false to make the find one an update and the find one remove. You know, it's required here in the documentation of the Mongoose that we set that to false. So we're going to follow the documentation to set these parameters, because there are a lot of things here, but we're going to just follow the documentation. We're going to follow it, and we're going to set up the parameters here. So you see that use unified topology, they say we should set to true. So we're going to set this to true as it's required here. It says set to true. And we're going to set the use find and modify to false. So using the documentation here, it's going to tell us a lot of things on what we should set to true, what we should set to false. So let's follow this now. So first of all is this, the use unified topology here. So we're going to set it to true here. So going back, the use unified topology is going to be set to true because we are following the documentation. So that is what they said we should do in the documentation here, set it to true. Okay, and we did that. So we're going to do set it to true. Okay, so another property here to use here is going back to the documentation. Going back to documentation, let's see. No, I'm looking for something else. The buffer commands. I don't think. You see, we should set the buffer commands to false. So let's do that. So we're going to go set the buffer commands. We're going to set it to false. Yeah. Okay. So we're done with the buffer command, and we're going to look for another one. No, I'm seeing the auto index. So the auto index is required that we set to false to disable automatic index creation for all models. So we're going to set this to false. The auto index is going to be false from the documentation. So we're doing that. The auto index is going to be false. Auto index is going to be false here. Okay. So what else? Auto index false from the documentation, and then we can see the use create index. So this use create index is saying if true, no, we can leave that, right? Use create index. So we're gonna, let's see. Going down, I'm scrolling down. Okay, so that should be all. I think we've done all the necessary setup here. So now the next thing to do is we have to use the await keyword, because this is going to take a while. So because it's going to take a while, we have to use the await keyword. So that is it. So now the next thing to do is to tell the user that the MongoDB have been connected. How do we do that? So first of all, we're going to say the console.log. We're going to log here MongoDB have been connected. Okay, that is it. So now we see if the MongoDB have connected, we're going to console log that. So now we're going to save all. So what next to do is I'm going to call the function here. So where should we call this function? So we're going to create a function, because if you check inside this init var here, we have the port. We're listening to the ports here. So we're going to create a function that all that function does is just going to listen to that port. So this function is going to be called, we're going to call this function listen to port. So this function, all it does is going to listen to the port. I'm going to make it asynchronous here. I'm gonna say listen to the port here. So we're just gonna say all this function does just listen to the port. So we're gonna copy everything we have here. We're gonna copy all of it and we're gonna paste it inside here. Gonna paste it inside here. Okay, so all the function does is listen to the port. So in here we're gonna call the function listen to port. That is it. So now we're gonna say then. So when you're done listening to the port, the next thing to do is to connect the MongoDB, right? So after we've connected to the port, we're gonna call the connectDB function. So there's a function we created up here called the connectDB. So we're gonna say when you're done listening to the port, connect the DB, the database. All right. So now we've connected to the database. It's not hard. It's that simple. So that is it now. So all we have to do is go to the terminal and run this. We're gonna check it out and see it work here. So we go to the terminal. I'm gonna call on the new terminal. So in here we're gonna say npm install or npm start. So we're gonna start the. Okay. So we just started it. We just ran the node. So now we're gonna say RestApi port is connected. Okay, the port is connected, but the MongoDB is not connected because it should also show here that the MongoDB have been connected, but it's not showing. So what should we do? So you see the MongoDB is not connected, so we have to find a way around that, or there's a reason. And that is because we forgot to save the work. We did not save our work. So we wrote the code, but we forgot to save it. You have to always save your work so that it will be it will work on the current writing code you wrote. You understand me? So we have to save the work to, we didn't save it. So I saved all the work now. I saved it and you can see MongoDB have been connected. So that is it. I just saved my work, and while I saved it, previously I did not save it, I forgot to do that. So make sure you save your work, then you run the node, you understand, then run the npm. So now that is it. We've connected the MongoDB. So now all we have to do is create a user schema. Now next video we're gonna create a user schema that will help us send the user to the database. We're gonna see how to do that. So in the next video now we're gonna see how do we send a user to the database, how do we create the endpoints, the REST API for the user. So now in this video we're gonna stop here because it's long enough, and in the next video we continue from here. Thank you.